Welcome to CSI Iowa. I'm your host, Bob Montserrat. Matt Montserrat's in the production booth. We're glad you joined us tonight. Tonight, I have a special guest from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. His name is Dr. Jim Coyle. And Dr. Coyle was at the Katrina disaster. That was in 2005. And I had the privilege of meeting him. And we have been friends ever since, even though there's been a gap, we haven't seen each other. But Jim was recently deployed, and I can't even say how recently, but it's been Haiti, the earthquake, and we're going to talk about Haiti tonight. So, Jim, welcome to CSI Iowa.
Hey, welcome, Bob. It's good to see you.
Yeah. You know, as I recalled, wasn't it this Dan from D.C. that introduced us?
Yeah. Dan Fletcher.
Fletcher, that's him, and he worked at the White House, is what I understood.
Yes, he did.
And he came and he thought that we should meet. Now, why would he think that?
Yeah, he just connected us because we're good at our jobs. That's why, Bob.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Maybe that's it. But you have been with the federal DMAT team. You know, everybody that watches the show knows that I'm part of DMORT, which is the mortuary team, and you're part of the disaster medical assistance team,
yes.
DMAT. Yeah. And how long have you been a part of that?
This is going into my 17th year.
Wow, that's been quite a long time.
Started out in Nevada many moons ago.
Okay, because you're originally from Nevada.
Yep.
And you're from Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
And so are you a fan of CSI Vegas?
Yeah, I'm a fan of all the CSIs.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad you're on CSI Iowa. That's a good thing.
There you go.
Obviously, everybody knows that this is a forensic type show, and I bring in people that are in the forensic field or law enforcement or the criminal justice system, but I also bring in people that have experienced traumatic situations because I'm into the critical incident stress management model. And you have been for years. Matter of fact, you have been. If you said 17 years, that's even before you finished all your education. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
You were part.
I was working on my master's degree back then, but
okay. And
so I've got CISM trained as well. But I've always had a passion for counseling and really helping people through trauma and drama in their life.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that you continue to do even now.
Absolutely.
But not only are you into the counseling aspect and have the advanced degree in that, but you act as a chaplain on the team too.
Yes.
So you have a pastoral role.
Yes, I do, and that's an honorable role for me. I've been a chaplain now since my beginning in the federal government. Way back 17 years ago.
Okay, so that was before the other.
That was my first assignment with NDMS, was a chaplain, and then I got my doctorate. So that just kind of opened up more doors for me. Yeah.
Did you find that when you were in disasters working as a chaplain that there was a need for mental health work?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, Bob, that's why I wanted the training. I mean, I've had the spiritual training as a pastor. I've been a pastor now this is my 29th year. So I really wanted to get the educational background so I could help people even more in crisis situations.
Mm-hmm. And what disasters have you been to?
Wow, that's
a long list, huh?
Yeah, it is a long list.
How about highlight the big ones?
Well, I'll tell you, I think I've responded to fires, I've responded to earthquakes, I've responded to hurricanes, terrorist stuff.
Did you go to 9/11?
No, I wasn't at that one.
Okay. All right. And you were, of course, in Katrina, Rita.
Absolutely, yes.
You were there when Rita hit, too.
Yep, Katrina and those twisted sisters,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, of course, when was Haiti?
Haiti was, it was in January of 2010.
10, okay.
I believe it was 2010.
So over 2 years then.
Yep.
All right. And I know that DMORT also went down there to Haiti. I was not a part of that group.
Right.
But I did hear that some of the people that deployed down there came down with, what was that, malaria?
And there were several of the DMORT team that had to come back, and it was they had a new fever strain that I wasn't aware of, called the dengue fever. and some of the folks got that as well. So,
do you any idea what that is, or
the strain of that fever?
Or what is it? The symptoms of that?
Well, it's the body temperature just rises up very quickly, and there's even some hysteria with some of the higher temperatures. Yeah,
sure.
That was a difficult strain. That was my first time I've experienced that. I mean, I've been around tuberculosis and the different types of diseases, but
were you? I'm assuming that you went and received a bunch of injections before you went down there.
Yeah, my immunization chart is like this, and it still is. Yeah.
But you did not get sick down there?
No, and I'm very grateful for that. Few people on the team did contact. Mostly, it was that new fever, the dengue fever, new to us. Maybe not new to the third world country, but
right. But some of the people that went deployed with you came down with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were sent back to stateside.
Yep.
Okay.
Very tough.
Okay. So when the disaster struck, I'm assuming that you were called. How long did it take before you were called?
Well, we were, first of all, this was kind of groundbreaking for the United States. It was the first time that we've ever deployed a medical team to a third world country. So there was a lot of politics initially getting through the red tape and stuff, but we went and actually worked with an IMSIRT team, which is the International Medical Surgical Team. And that was good and great experience. And
obviously you were there to support, do mental health support.
Yes.
Was there a language problem?
Yeah, there was. They spoke Creole and French. So we had interpreters there to help us cross that barrier.
Do you find it difficult to counsel or debrief someone when you go through an interpreter?
Yeah, it is. It's a strange element, but the beautiful thing that we learn over the years is body language is very critical, because you can look into somebody's eyes and feel the warmth and be accepted as whether it's just somebody you want to put your arms around them or help them.
Do you do that? Is that part of how you help people? Do you touch people as part of helping them psychologically? Yeah,
it all depends on the person. After a while, you can figure out what the person needs, and a lot of times the touch is incredible.
I would imagine with young people it might be pretty helpful.
And this was another thing that we found very difficult over there is we ended up having to have a pediatric ward because of all the damage and injuries that were sustained by kids, and including infants. So we set up a whole pediatric ward over there.
Now, the thing that I think is mind-boggling for most people is that when you hear a number like 250,000 people that perished, you can't even fathom that.
Oh, it's so difficult to even fathom. I remember just the journey from the airport to where we set up. It was just amazing, and the smell of death. And I've never been around that much death in my life. Very, very alarming.
And so you had the odor of decomposition, I'm assuming, that was
absolutely
all around you. And I know that they were doing mass burials out there, which in those, I consider it third world, but third world countries, that's usually how they do that.
Right.
Which I think for us, it's hard for us to even fathom, mass burials in that sense. But we haven't had anything that big really here that would have that much death. So we're probably wondering, what are we going to do if we have something like that? The building structures in Haiti, I know, they were not up. There's no code whatsoever.
No code, and if they had rebar in the concrete, they were fortunate. But when the ground shook, and the epicenter was right in the heart of Port-au-Prince, and so you have all those millions there, and it was devastating. Structural damage everywhere.
Yeah, and we saw many of the photos that came back here, and you look at that and you shake your head, and your heart goes out to the people that are out there suffering. And I know that even now there are teams going out there to help. Many times it's usually private groups, church, funded mission type trips. But that help is going to be there for years, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Now, when you were there, I'm assuming you were in a tent sleeping, and the military probably set it up for you. And you were staying in tents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. And how many hour days would you find yourself working?
Well, you're supposed to work 14, but that's not, 14 off sleeping. But, when nobody slept much, the demand was pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
So, you probably work 18, 20, sometimes 22 hours a day and catch a couple winks of sleep and get back and go at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I remember from when I was in New York, was that you were, as a counselor, you're never really free. You don't have time, and if you're with people, even if you're rooming with people, those
Right.
people that you haven't seen want to talk to you, about what was going on. So virtually you don't really get a break. You find that to be true?
Yeah. And the difficult part where we were at, they had tent cities everywhere. Right outside where we were stationed, there was a tent city, probably had 10,000 people, and so there was just constant noise and a lot of stuff going on, bud. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming the temperature was it was hot.
Well, we were instructed to drink at least 12 bottles of water every day just to stay hydrated. But the water, they didn't have any ice or refrigerator. So if you can imagine drinking water at 96 degrees.
It's pretty boring.
Yeah. But we had to do it.
And you did? You drank 12 bottles?
Yeah, and we numbered them.
Oh.
And we made sure that everybody was hydrated. That was very critical for us.
Mm-hmm. How about the insects, and was that a problem too?
Lots and lots of mosquitoes. Yeah.
Okay.
They were biggins. They were
big ones.
a lot of bugs.
Mm-hmm.
So you just you work through it. You spray yourself down with. We had became very familiar with this product called DEET.
Yeah, DEET.
And
100%.
100% DEET.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and I'm assuming you had pretty nice showers out there.
well, the cool thing is you can learn to take a shower in about 4 ounces of water.
So that's how you consume some of your water, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we do.
Now, I'm assuming you were dealing with children through adults.
Yes.
So is this something that you have done children before? Have you counseled with children?
Not to this extent, Bob. This is when we had kids coming in that lost their parents. They lost all their family members, and they had no support. And then they would show up, and it was very difficult. And a lot of the translators really helped out with those situations.
How do you're only there for a short time. You're only going to see them for a short time. I mean, what do you give to them, or what can you give to them to help them under those circumstances?
Well, the strongest thing that I had as a chaplain, the people there were very strong in their faith. And so just being able to provide some kind of hope through their faith. And I connected with a few pastors over there that had come in with either their kids or to get treatment. And then we were able to develop an ongoing relationship with some of the pastors to stay connected with the people, because really, that's all they have is they have their faith and their hope, and that's pretty much all they had. And so my role as a chaplain in that environment was probably greater than any other deployment that I've ever been on.
So you did more chaplain duties, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, more chaplain duties, and held a lot of kids, just holding babies and holding kids.
Now, I know that you had taken some photos out there of some of the victims of that, because when the buildings collapse, obviously we know what happens. Flesh is crushed, bones are broken, and most of the people were killed by being crushed.
Right.
And so when you have that many people, that means you're going to have that many or more that are injured. And so you're seeing not only the mentally injured, but the physically injured. You're seeing it's both. It's a combination.
It is definitely a combination, and I think that there was a lot more, some of the mental stuff that went associated with their injuries. The combination was overwhelming.
Did you find anybody there that were experiencing like survivor guilt? I mean, were the people that were uninjured, where family members were injured, and they were feeling like, why How come I was spared?
I didn't deal a whole lot with that because we were a triage center, and so most of the people that came in were injured unless they were parents of some kids.
Right.
But like I said, a lot of times the parents were gone. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was your role to be there. Okay, that makes sense. But I would think that in some situations that would be a problem that some other people would be dealing with.
Sure.
I just think about the disasters we've been on, and I think about some of the common things that people would think under those circumstances. The other thing that we talked about on an earlier show today was that you have been responding to disasters, but being from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, there were floods in 2008. You got to see what it was like on the other side.
Yeah, that is correct. I was pastoring a church in Cedar Rapids, down in a section called the Time Check area, and we were surrounded with 535 homes, and the church and all 535 of those homes were under 12 foot of water, so we lost everything. And I remember that flood, as devastating as that was for the community of Cedar Rapids. The first few weeks, I was responding as a first responder would, realizing that at some point I was going to have to go in and really assess the damage that was done to not only my personal property there with the church, but also the 535 homes that we served. So I remember, Bob, after a couple of weeks, that section of Cedar Rapids was the last section that they'd actually let residents go in to assess the damage. Mm-hmm. And so when the National Guard cut the yellow tape, I was one of the first ones with a few of the neighbors that had lost absolutely everything. And we walked those streets, and it was very difficult. So
initially you were a rescuer, and then you were one that needed to be rescued.
Yeah. And I'd tell you what, I wouldn't trade that experience, because being a first responder after all these years, now it's given me a little bit more, I'm going to say, empathy skills, mm-hmm. Of understanding what even would go on, what I'm going to call the second disaster, and that is the mountain of paperwork and dealing with the loss and trying to, cross the T's and dot the I's of a disaster. And it's not only do you lose everything, but then you have to come back and relive it day after day after day.
Right.
Very difficult.
Yeah, and so when you counsel people that are going through it, and then you go through it, all of that knowledge you have really doesn't, you can see it, you understand it, but you still have to go through it and experience the pain.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, because of your education, it doesn't mean you can avoid the pain of it.
That's a great point. That's why I think it was a great, obviously a great experience for me, because what you learn out of a textbook, or what I can teach on PowerPoint slides about traumatic stress in a very difficult situation, I can talk about it. But now that I've lived it, I believe that it just helps me connect a little bit more with the people that have gone through it.
Mm-hmm. All right, we need to take a break. This is our first break. We have as a guest Dr. Jim Coyle from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You're watching CSI Iowa on webcast1live.com, and I don't want you to forget, but all of these shows are posted on my Facebook page, CSI Iowa. So we'll be back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
from the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios. Listen, watch, chat. This is Webcast One Live. Programs on webcast1live.com are brought to you in part by KDC Builders, building custom homes for how you live. KDC will take your dreams and turn them into reality. Go to our website, kdcbuilt.com, or call Hannah Inman at 515-975-9990. And Tom Coates and ConsumerCreditOfAmerica.com. Are you overwhelmed with mounted credit card debt and feel there's no way out? Well, there is. Call 1-800-955-5765 for Consumer Credit of America. That's ccofamerica.com.
Welcome back to CSI Iowa, and my guest tonight is Dr. Jim Coyle, and we're going to get into some slides from Haiti that Jim brought here to the studio. So, Matt, why don't you put the first one up so we can see what it is, and Jim, give us an idea of what we're looking at here.
Well, this young lady's name is Naomi. I have an 11-year-old daughter at home that when I went to Haiti, she gave me her favorite stuffed animal. She said, "Dad, when you find somebody, I want you to give this to this person." Well, this young lady that you see, her name is Naomi. I believe she was 12 years old, and she had her leg amputated because of the earthquake. But in the middle of the night, she began to scream hysterically. And this is like, for 2-3 hours as she was in one of our triage areas. And so Naomi, I didn't really know what was going on. Nobody really knew. And one of the docs came up to me. We just began talking, and I mentioned something called phantom limb pain. It's something I've read about in books, and I've seen treated through videos and different things like that. But I just began to wonder what was going on with Naomi. And so I had an interpreter with me. And the interpreter, what I asked him to do was to touch that area of her leg that wasn't there anymore, but just to reach down and touch that. And as he did, as he touched what you and I would visualize as the air, she began to scream even louder.
In pain?
In pain, in tremendous pain. And so the interpreter, what I asked him to do is I began to kind of work my way around the leg, and it was excruciating pain for her. And so what phantom limb pain is, it's a psychological disorder as well, because what the nerves are sending to the brain is that the leg is still there, even though it's not. So you can imagine the trauma that this young girl was in, experiencing all this tremendous pain and then looking down and having it not there. So the next morning, as you can see this slide here, what I began to do was to treat her. And I took, through the interpreter, I took a bottle of water. I spent over an hour with her. I washed her good leg just to gain confidence. And I took the water and I cleaned her leg, and I told the interpreter that this is what I wanted to do, is to try to bring comfort to that leg. And so a good 20, 30 minutes on the one leg, very slowly. I even washed her foot, every part of her leg. And then I moved over into the other area and began to pour water very gently. And I watched Naomi, her facial expressions as she just sat back in the chair and began to feel a calming and a sensation. So it was wonderful to begin to tell her that she wasn't crazy, that what she was experiencing was very real to her, because that's what the nerves were telling her. So we treated this phantom limb pain with massage therapy, and as I cleaned it, and it was an amazing thing. And what I learned from Naomi was to be able to begin to apply this to some of the other amputees that were in trauma, and there were a lot. That was majority of our cases that we saw.
Now, they obviously can see that you don't have their limb in in your hand, right? But that didn't seem to upset them that you were acting like it was there?
No, it was fascinating. I mean, people were gathering around watching, and I was fascinated too because I've never done any of this kind of treatment before. But it was just an inspired way of approaching to treat it. I've never read about it.
So you just gave it a try?
I gave it a try, and I just got water, and I took her out. It was a beautiful day, as you can see, and I just gave it a shot. And I tell you what, it was probably from a medical experience, one of the most rewarding things I've ever been part of, both from a mental perspective and from a traumatic perspective.
Did you require to do that long term, or was it a short term?
It was short term. In fact, she wasn't in very long. She was left either that day or the following day. But we got her up on crutches, and she did spend the night. This was an interesting thing that was wonderful because I monitored her sleep. She was able to sleep through the night, and I think that may have been one of the first nights that she actually slept all the way through. Fascinating.
Yeah, and it calmed her down and gave her peace.
Yeah, and not only that, but then the other patients, as I began to treat them, and not everybody had phantom limb pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I maybe treated 11 patients that may have had it out of, the multitude. But so it doesn't happen to everybody, but for some it does.
Now, in an instant like that, also being a chaplain, did you find that any type of spiritual things that you did that helped them?
Well, Naomi, for an example, she saw the cross on my around my neck, and the first thing she said to me was "Merci Jesus, Merci Jesus," and French for "Thank you, Jesus." And she reached her arms around me and gave me a big old kiss on my cheek. That was when I first met her. So you can see that. Well, man, this little girl just stole my heart. Obviously, enough to give her the prized possession of my own daughter. And hopefully she's carrying that around with her for the rest of her life. But Bob, there was a faith element there in that environment that helped so many people. And as a chaplain, when they saw the cross, they would just embrace that. So many. So it was a very important part of the treatment of those people.
Mm-hmm. Now I know that you're out there working for the federal government. But as a chaplain, if you're designated as a chaplain, then that gives you the ability to pray, right? Or
Yes.
to offer whatever spiritual thing you are led to do for that person, right? So you're okay.
Yes.
And the government's okay with you doing that.
Yeah, and that was my role there. One of my roles as a chaplain was to be able to provide that kind of faith-based assistance to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the population there was very open to that. In fact, they came to me, and that story after story of how many of the people realized that I was a chaplain, and they were just running to me for prayer and
Asking for prayer.
And
you would do that for them
absolutely.
with no problem. And you did it through an interpreter.
Yes, for the most part. And then some of them spoke broken English. But the beautiful thing is that there were some pastors that came in, so we were able to develop that relationship. And so it wasn't all about me at all. It was being able to hand their faith and their faith-based needs into the care of pastors that were living there and caring for their people. And I still stay in touch with some of the pastors.
From
Haiti. It's wonderful.
And they're still in Haiti.
Yep.
Okay. I'm assuming it's email.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful?
Or Skype or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Now, going through there, obviously there were many crush injuries, and so you had to see some of that going through, which in turn has the potential to affect you. What do you do for yourself? I mean, how do you deal with your trauma that you experience?
I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've had a lot of experience with this. I remember at the age of 23, I was a chaplain on the fire department in Las Vegas, and they had the MGM fires in 1980. And I believe there were 89 people that were killed. And I was on scene there, and I saw stuff, people jumping and from many, many floors, and the bodies that I was there, and then trying to comfort the people. I remember losing sleep, and I still do. I could replay that in my head, and it was very traumatic. But then along the way, I think that just prepared me, even for Haiti, to help people in transition. And it is a very difficult thing. And I always have people to talk to and talk through about it. So that's very, very important. But fortunately, I have had experience with
traumatic things.
Yes.
This MGM, I remember that because I remember Grady Bray. I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
you know
Grady. Oh, my gosh. Bob.
And he was in there.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
Yeah, Grady was there, yeah.
Yeah, he almost lost his life there.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but did you know him at the time?
No, I met him right after that.
Okay.
It's the first time I met him.
Yeah, but the trauma for you, though, is you saw somebody hit the ground right in front of you, didn't you?
Yeah, within about 20 feet. And it was, yeah.
Yeah, so it was permanently burned in that DVD burner in your head.
Yeah, and still is. I could literally shut my eyes and relive that. And you work through it, and I mean, stuff like that can either make us stronger, and hopefully it does make us stronger.
Yeah, yeah. I think initially you feel it when it's shortly there after, but then as time goes on and you learn coping skills.
That's right.
And you learn the power of prayer too. Then it gets less painful as time goes on, and then you can incorporate helping others by your own experiences. But I know that there are times, even for me, that I'll think back of a traumatic incident, and it'll bring a small emotional response.
Right.
Not big, but just a little bit, because you start to relive that scene that, for me, I know it's like 20, 30 years ago. But you still remember that.
Yeah.
And so that tends to cause a problem in a small way. Matter of fact, I was watching one of the TV shows. They were interviewing for Memorial Day some of the troops that came back, and this one soldier was talking about how he was shot, and then his lieutenant came to help him, and his lieutenant was shot, and the one that first was shot was trying to save the lieutenant. Wow. And he carried him like a mile, and the lieutenant died. Well, he's got PTSD, and he says, I can't be happy. There's no reason to be happy, and it bothers me when I'm around people that are laughing, and because I don't have that freedom. I don't feel like I can be happy again. So there were times that I could remember feeling that way for a while. It didn't last, it wasn't PTSD, but it was a feeling of that. And so, but that helps me because I could see it in other people, and I can see that and understand that once you've gone through it. So I think, as you're saying, that once you experience things yourself, it makes you better equipped, I think, to help others.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what you've experienced too. Well, let's take a break, and when we come back from this break, I want you to talk about something extraordinary that happened with a little baby. And this is, and I haven't heard the story, but I can't wait to hear it. So you're watching CSI Iowa on Webcast One Live, and we'll be back in a moment.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios. Listen, watch, chat. This is Webcast One Live. Programs on webcast1live.com are brought to you in part by KDC Builders, building custom homes for how you live. KDC will take your dreams and turn them into reality. Go to our website, kdcbuilt.com, or call Hannah Inman at 515-975-9990. And Tom Coates and ConsumerCreditOfAmerica.com. Are you overwhelmed with mounted credit card debt and feel there's no way out? Well, there is. Call 1-800-955-5765 for Consumer Credit of America. That's ccofamerica.com.
Welcome back to CSI Iowa. My guest tonight is Dr. Jim Coyle. We've been talking about the Haiti earthquake disaster that happened, I think, in 2010, I think if we're right. And we were talking about a lot of the people that you touched, and they touched you. But this is a story that actually happened to you. And I don't know, did you want the slide, or do you want to set it up, or how do you want to tell this?
Well, I'll tell the story, and then we can bring the picture of him in. One of the hardest things for me that I had to deal with, even coming back, was the kids, and because I have such a passion for kids, and some of the difficult things that the kids were under. We had a baby come in. I'm guessing 4 or 5 months old, and the baby was full of meningitis, tuberculosis, the dengue fever. Our docs tried everything that they could to keep the baby alive, and it just wasn't working. And so they actually handed the baby off to me just to help the baby die, saying, the baby's probably got a few minutes left or whatever. So I took the baby and I held him, and I just went into a quiet place and tried to be alone as the baby was going to pass. And I remember holding that baby in my arms, and the baby's just taking what I thought would be his last breath. Exasperating. And then dead silence. And I just thought, oh man, the baby's died, and the baby would keep breathing. And so I held the baby for 7 hours. And
no breathing.
He kept breathing.
Oh, he kept breathing.
Yeah, the baby kept breathing and in and out. I thought he would pass, but he didn't. So I was exhausted. I was already up. It was a long night for me. And I asked one of the nurses just to relieve me. I explained the situation. Just hold the baby, and I'm just gonna go get a couple hours rest. So when I came back, the baby was still alive, and so the baby became a mascot in our camp, and we named him Jeffrey. Jeffrey for president of Haiti, and it became a big moral boost for us that this baby didn't die. And I just remember holding that baby and just going through all my feelings, but the baby didn't die. So it brought life back to the camp. And the baby was doing well for a few days, and then he took a downward trend again. So they took him back into our little ICU center for our pediatrics, and they couldn't save him. So they pronounced him dead. The coroner was there, and they handed me the baby.
Now, why would they keep handing you the baby? I mean...
Well, that was one of my roles, was just I was there for the kids, and Mom and Dad were there at the time as well. Maybe not at this time. They were with the baby throughout, but they weren't there at this time. Funny, I had to teach the dad how to hold a baby. Never held a baby.
Wow.
So you just had to teach him how to do that.
Must be a cultural thing.
Yeah, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bob, when they handed me the baby, one of the guys went to get a body bag. What we did there was provide body bags for the deceased. And I said, I'm just going to walk away. So I walked away. And I just held that baby, and a lifeless body, cold. And I cried and held that baby for a long time. And the baby started breathing again, and I just couldn't believe it. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But as I'm praying over this baby too, and probably more grief because of the relationship that we all built around this little Jeffrey. But Jeffrey came back to life. And I'm going to have you go ahead and bring up the picture, Matt. That's Jeff on the right. He has his twin brother. Little Jeffrey on the right. That is not a medical tube in him. That was just to help feed him. Nothing medical there. When the baby came back to life, his vitals started coming back. And the day that we left Port-au-Prince, Jeffrey left that camp to be with his mom and his twin brother. So, Bob, I'm telling you, as crazy as it sounds, it's something that I have prayed for all my life as a pastor, as a chaplain. I read about it. I've seen it. I mean, not seen it personally, but understand that the availability of the power of God was there. And for the first time in my life, I witnessed somebody coming back from being pronounced dead. So, one of the greatest experiences of my life. And Jeffrey, I hope to see him again someday. I don't know if I ever will. I'll see him in heaven. Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
Were you praying for him to come back?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was. Initially, not. And I was with the baby for a couple hours. So initially, it was more grieving. But then I just said, you know what, God, do this. Do this. Mm-hmm. Do this, oh God. I know you can do this. Glorify your name with this. I know you can do it. And that would just begin to be a prayer of mine. And, look what God did. Amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think if you hadn't seen it for yourself, people might say, well, there has to be a medical explanation for this. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I lived it in the camp. The people couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Here their mascot's back to life, and he was pronounced dead.
And people witnessed the fact that he was pronounced dead.
Oh, yeah. In fact, they even took a photo of him. There's a photo of him, of the deceased. So.
And so what did they do when you come back and say, yep, look who's back?
Well, those that had the faith and understood were doing cartwheels like I was. And then others that tried to put different language to it other than glorifying our Father. Mm-hmm. Tried to put some kind of a medical terminology to it. I mean, it is what it is, but I witnessed a miracle of life coming back into a body.
And how long were you there when this happened? How much time elapsed while you were there at the camp from when you got there?
Oh, the first time we met, I think we were there for 14 days on that particular mission. And Jeffrey came in maybe the third or fourth day. Okay, so
that changed the whole outlook from that day forward for everybody there.
Yeah,
when that happened.
I see what you're saying. From actually the miracle that took place, him coming back, was probably 3 days or 2 days prior to us leaving.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the beauty. I mean, he went the same day we went. In fact, we were literally heading out the back door, and they were going out the front door with the baby in arms. And man, I tell you, Bob, nothing like that.
Pretty awesome.
Wow.
Where do you go from there? I mean,
yeah, that's a faith builder. I remember my dad dying in my arms, and the greatest gift my dad gave me was his last breath. And right before his last breath, I watched his eyes pop open as he saw heaven, and then he passed. I mean, that's such faith building for me to know how authentic my relationship with God is, and then to witness this baby come back, it just pours life into me.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. I remember when my father was passing, and he couldn't even talk. He had cancer, pancreatic cancer, and he was so weak, and yet he called me over, and if I got my ear right over his mouth, I could hear him whispering, because that's all the strength he had. And he basically said to me, he said, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine." And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Here he is dying. I mean, he's just moments from dying, and he tells me, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine."
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that was encouraging to me too. to hear that from him. But well, as you know, I volunteered for hospice for 6 years. I told you about that. But but that's another thing, to be with people that are on their way out, be able to be there for them, to encourage them, and be by their side. And so in a sense, that's also what you were doing, because I'm assuming there were people that were dying.
I held many hands as they passed, and one of, as crazy as that sounds, one of my greatest joys is just being able to help people pass on, to whether it's holding their hand or embracing them. And I believe that my dad helped me with that, to be able to do that for people, because I've had that opportunity so many different times.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming to you, the death to you is not, you don't fear that.
No, it's just an open door for me, and for those that I have helped transition through life, and with so many. It's just an open door for eternity. So that blesses me, and it's an honor for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I can see. I mean, I know that it's something that you like to do, and like I've mentioned before, the children that are out there, and I know you dealt with a lot of children, and you look at them as being very innocent. They are innocent, and yet they have such faith. And sometimes we may try with our intellect put down people like that, saying they don't know any better, and yet I think they do know better. That's something that the innocence of those lives, and but still on that aspect, you just see it. I'm assuming you just see it as a transition. That's
Absolutely,
it's a part of life.
And that particular deployment, as I said earlier, there, a biblical definition of faith is, being able to hope for things that you can't see, and being hold on, even though you can't see it. And being in the third world country, there was a lot more faith there than I've even seen here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't have the distractions that we do with all this stuff, because when it gets down to it, that's all they had.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so you see things happening. Now, in the chaplain role, people were asking you to pray for healing for them. Is that true?
Yeah. Word got out. I'm telling you right now, word got out quickly about little Jeffrey, and it was just incredible to lead them to a much greater, powerful source than me. I'm just.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about God, and that's what was so great about having pastors there to love and care for them. And it was an amazing thing. I mean, the workers that were volunteering there, and the people that were cleaning the camp. I can't think of anybody that didn't want prayer. They were all asking for prayer.
Mm-hmm. What about when you were preparing to leave? What kind of thoughts were running through your mind? I mean, obviously, I know you wanted to get back to your family, obviously. But what about leaving those people behind?
Bob, I remember the plane ride home just in tears, because the relationships that we built with those kids, especially, that I knew I'd never see them again. I remember we had one little baby that was brought in. He had water on the brain, and he wasn't supposed to live, but we were able to get him surgery on the USS Hope, our medical ship, through a surgeon, and somebody had a USA paper on the flight home, and when I was just in my despair of trying to walk away and let go of all of it, one of the nurses came running back. Dr. Coyle, where are you? You got to read this. And there was a little excerpt of this little baby, and gave him the name Skylar because he came out of a helicopter and was dropped down to him. And they even used the word Skylar in this little newspaper clip about how this little boy who had syphilis, water in the brain, was reunited with his parents, and that was very cool because he came in. They found him in a field, so the parents literally left the baby to die. And so here's this USA article saying that Skylar had survived his surgery and was reunited with his parents. And that's how I got home. It was those little victories, you know, those tiny little things. So
feel like you were able to walk away or fly away feeling like made a difference. A difference was made over there.
Yeah.
And tell me about, we mentioned Sean Penn, the actor.
Yeah. I tell you what, I've just got so much respect for Sean because he had some folks over there that were really assisting, and we had a young girl that had some severe head trauma and lost a lot of tissue. Her skull was exposed and wasn't going to survive, and there was nobody on the island that could assist her. So Sean actually flew her in his private plane back to Miami and was able to save her life. So, yeah, good. Sean did, and I think he's still doing a lot of work over there as well. So, well, kudos to Sean. You know.
It's good to see him from a different angle because, you know, you always have, you know, the Hollywood people. You wonder why they do what they do, but sometimes they have the means to do good things.
Yep.
And then they do good things with those means. So
yeah, not only did I shook his hand, but I looked into his eyes and just thanked him because he was doing a tremendous work in helping people.
Mm-hmm. Was he staying in the same camp where you were?
No.
Okay.
No, not sure where he was at, but
maybe sleeping on his plane.
Who knows?
Who knows? But he was there.
He was there.
Yeah. Now, you were there for at least 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
Did you feel like you could have stayed another week, or were you totally exhausted?
No, I wanted to.
You wanted to stay.
I wanted to stay in, but just the boundaries in who we are, and we go for 2 weeks and then come home. I wanted to have an extension because I was so involved with it. And that's what happens. You go on a deployment, you become emotionally attached. And that's one of the reasons as a mental health doctor that we need to go home. And I understand that, but I would have stayed in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I would have. And actually tried, but it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, in Katrina, they seem to have no problem extending us.
Well, yeah, that was a different...
different setup.
That disaster was huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We didn't have the fatalities that were involved there.
Right.
That Haiti did, but we had
mental health. A lot of mental health dealings down
as you
there.
know.
Yeah.
By the way, I enjoyed working with you out at the morgue out there too.
Yeah.
So that reliving some of that was a great experience, my friend.
Yeah, I'm glad you were there, and I know that Dan Fletcher, who really liked being out there too. Yeah. So anyway, we've run out of time, and I really appreciate you being out here, driving out here from Cedar Rapids. You know, I told you could have Skyped, but it's much better having you in person. It really is. So, so we may have to do this again on another disaster because, you know, we know that there are more coming.
Yes.
And maybe here in the States. So again, so we'll have to see what happens, but hopefully we'll get a chance to work together. And so we'll just happen to see. I mean, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. I'm not looking forward to disasters. It's just we know that these things are going to happen, and what makes the difference, the people you get to work with.
Yes.
You know, that's really inspiring to me. I love the people we get to work with. And it really shows you and gives you the opportunity to show love to others too, which is what we do, and that's part of the compassion that, you know, that's why we do what we do, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, anyway, we need to leave. You've been watching CSI Iowa on Webcast One Live, and don't forget, tune into my Facebook page, CSI Iowa, to catch the archive shows. So we will see you next week. Good night.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit